Hello. All right. In this module, we're going to cover scissor lifts. Why? Because scissor lifts are very common everywhere. When I was in California at a Masonic lodge, we had a very big room for a dining room with very high ceilings. And a couple of us, well, a couple of guys older than me even, were going to get up there, climb the ladder, and change some light bulbs up there. And this was a very high ladder, like 20 foot. And I put my foot down. I said, no, you're not. We're going to rent a scissor lift. Now, we rented a small scissor lift. We had a small elevator, fit into that small elevator, had outriggers on it. So those guys could get up there and do the safety, because I was not going to have my Masonic brothers fall off a ladder and probably end their life as they know it, at least. And so I'm a big fan of scissor lifts. If they're used safely, they're fantastic. And they're one of the safest ways to get it to a high place and do some work if they're used safely. So that's what we're going to talk about, because we want to use them safely. So OSHA has no specific regulation for scissor lifts. They'll issue citation, of course, under the General Duty Clause 5A1, which says, I know you've heard this before, each employer shall furnish to each of his employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards and that are the hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his employees. And each employer shall comply with occupational safety and health standards promulgated in this act. So even though it's called the General Duty Clause, it's a pretty powerful clause. So even you could almost, if you want to keep one clause in all of OSHA, you do this, and that would pretty much cover everything. All right, scissor lift safety can be best addressed by selecting the right equipment for the job. Got to know what the terrain is and everything else, and the type of flooring you have, how high you have to go, etc. Train employees before they operate scissor lifts. It's funny, or it's sad really, that we have to be told to do this, but we do to train them. Training is not that difficult because they're not that sophisticated a piece of equipment. There's a book in there on every scissor lift. If you don't have a instruction manual on the scissor lift itself, then you need to get one. If you rent a scissor lift, it will be there. Trust me, I've rented enough scissor lifts, and you can use that to train people. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for training, operation, and maintenance. There you go with manufacturer's instructions again. OSHA's investigation of scissor lifts over a 1-year period involving 10 fatalities and 20 injuries found that most were the result of the employer not addressing fall protection, stabilization, and positioning. Scissor lifts must have guardrails installed to prevent workers from falling. Employers should train workers to check to see that the guardrail system is in place before working on the scissor lift. Only stand on the work platform. Never stand on the guardrails or on anything on the platform. That is a big thing. You get up on the scissor lift, you got to go an extra foot. You don't put a crate down there, stand up on it. No. You want to stand on the mid rails of the thing? No, you cannot do that. That just takes that guardrail system and makes it useless. So you can't let people do that. Keep work within easy reach to avoid leaning away from the scissor lift. So you don't want to lean too far. Depending how high up you are, the higher you get, the more unstable it becomes. If the guardrail system on the lift is in place and fully operational, other fall protections aren't necessary if the lift is used properly. Some employers also require a fall arrest system. Most scissor lifts have a fall protection attachment point inside the scissor lift. There'll be a ring there, and that's where you're supposed to attach for fall protection. And now, maybe the best thing to do attach for there would be just a lanyard that doesn't let you get far enough to fall, because unless you're pretty high, a fall arrest system takes a long time to take hold. So, and you're going to swing. So the thing is, you just don't want to fall out of a scissor lift. That's the main thing. Scissor lifts must be stable so they will not tip over or collapse. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for safe movement. This usually rules out moving the lift in an elevated position. They say usually you can just, for minor adjustment in the elevated position. Isolate the scissor lift or implement traffic control measures to ensure that other equipment cannot contact the scissor lift. Select work locations with firm level surfaces away from hazards that can cause instability. Drop-offs, holes, slopes, bumps, debris, etc. So now it says select work locations, but generally speaking, if you're using a scissor lift to get up at something, you can't go 10 feet away and get up at that, whatever it is you're trying to get at, right? So that's not always possible to select a work location. You're going to have to use a work location wherever it is you need to get at. So, but it should have firm level surfaces away from hazards that can cause instability, like drop-offs, holes, slopes. If you have those things intermittently on a floor, you can avoid them. Use a scissor lift outside only when weather conditions are good. Lifts rated for outdoor use are generally limited to wind speeds below 28 miles per hour. And for crying out loud, don't put a banner on a scissor lift. You make that a sail, and way below 28 miles an hour can take that, knock that thing over if you put a banner on it. Some people do that, put up to advertise, they put a banner on so it's nice and high. Now you've got a sail. During the 2010 college football season, the student, who was also an employee of the University of Notre Dame, was killed while filming the team's football practice from a scissor lift. The untrained worker raised the lift over 39 feet to film the practice. 39 feet, that's pretty high. It's like a 4-story building. The wind gusts that day were more than 50 miles per hour. The high winds blew the lift over, killing the worker. I'm thinking at 39 feet high, with way less than 50 miles an hour, is going to be dangerous. So there's this poor college student, untrained, doing what he's doing, trying to do a good job, trying to put his way through college, and he gets killed by doing it. Because why? Because nobody trained him on it. Whoever gave him that job or got that, or that should have trained this young man. He'd probably be alive today. And somewhere, somebody has to stay and put their foot down and say, no, you are not doing this today. You're not going up on that today. It's too windy. Although rare, the collapse of a scissor lift can be prevented if employers ensure that safety systems designed to stop collapsing are maintained and not bypassed. Now they're talking about no TIPO, talking about it coming down. Never allow the weight on the work platform to exceed the manufacturer's load rating, and that goes for anything. They'll never exceed the manufacturer's load rating of anything. Never allow equipment other than the scissor mechanism to be used to raise the work platform. In other words, don't pick up the scissor lift with a forklift, which you've seen in pictures. Don't ever do that. Keep the lift from being struck by other moving equipment on the work site. Put up cones or some kind of barrier around it. So if there is other moving vehicles, they're not going to hit the scissor lift. Position the scissor lift to avoid crushing hazards. Crushing hazards are present in workplaces. Using scissor lifts and may expose workers nearby, even those not working on the scissor lift. Employers should train employees to be watchful when a moving scissor lift is near a fixed object. You can hit it and that could topple it. A moving vehicle and a scissor lift are operating closely. The scissor lift passes under a fixed object, such as a door frame, support beam, or sprinkler system piping. Always want to be careful of overhead objects. Position the scissor lift to avoid electrocution hazards. Very important. Do not operate a scissor lift close to any power source, such as power lines or transformers, so that the people on the lift are 10 feet away from the power source. Now, not the lift itself is 10 feet away, but the people are on it. So if the people stick up 3 feet above the railing, then you need to be 13 feet from that, because that person could be 10 feet from the power source. If the job requires work near an electrical source, ensure that the worker is qualified and has received the required electrical training. So that's if the guy, it doesn't do with a scissor lift per se, but if the person on the scissor lift is going to be doing some electrical work, they need to be qualified to what they're doing and have been trained. Employers must regularly maintain scissor lifts to ensure that they are safe to use. Manufacturers' maintenance and inspection instruction will generally include how to test and inspect controls and components before each use. And ensure that guardrail systems are in good working condition. Verify that brakes, once set, will hold the scissor lift in position. Employers must provide workers training on hazards, including how to work safely with or near scissor lifts. Training at a minimum must include manufacturer's instructions for operating the scissor lift vertically and while in transit, how to handle materials on the scissor lift, including weight limits, other worksite hazards workers may encounter when working on a scissor lift, and it depends on your situation, reporting any equipment defects or maintenance needs. And that has to do with any type of equipment, forklift, scissor lifts, whatever. Each scissor lift has a specific place in the basket. Basket meaning where the people go, usually near the controls to keep the manufacturer's instructions. I have never seen a scissor lift that didn't have that. the manufacturer's instructions in that little, usually like a basket or a box, usually covered up. Be sure that these instructions are always present, even in rented scissor lifts. If you rent a scissor lift, I guarantee it will have that in there. Use them in developing a training program, and you can also use them to train employees. We have one of our facilities had to do a bunch of cleaning above on the rafters up front, so they rented like 3 scissor lifts, and they were going to do it in shifts and all the people. So we went over there and got all the people trained on it. Now there's not a lot to a scissor lift. It's it goes up and down and forward back, so it's not, you're not carrying, they weren't going to carry loads, so that wasn't an issue. They were just going up with people. So they did it and nobody got hurt. So again, no specific OSHA standards, general duty clause. Going to recap kind of what we covered here. Properly installed and maintained guardrail system is the fall protection system. Now, people want to throw somebody in a lanyard and stuff. You can do that if you want to, but if you have a properly maintained guardrail system, that's the fall protection system. Train workers before allowing operation. Follow manufacturer's instructions for operations, maintenance, and training. And that's about I'm going to tell you about scissor lift. There's another safety video, the training video I want you to watch too, because it's always good, excuse me, always good to get somebody else's opinion or somebody else's point of view on stuff, and hear somebody else's voice too, I'm guessing. So in the meantime, especially when you're on scissor lifts, be safe.